So, Tim, you didn't have an October event last... Good morning! Jeez, yeah, hi. So, you didn't have an October event last year. Are you gonna have a March event this year? Oh, yes, Drew, you better believe it. We're gonna come into 2023 swinging. Okay, cool. Yeah, I was hoping you guys could update the Mac Mini, or maybe we could get some new MacBook Pros or something like that. You're not gonna want any of that. You better stay tuned for our mixed reality headset. We've been working on it for years. It's only gonna cost $3,000, and you just need to attach the battery packs to this specialty designed Apple belt buckle that is MagSafe compatible. The battery packs are only $99. Each one lasts 30 minutes, and this headset is absolutely going to change the way you play Angry Birds VR and Candy Crush. Why would anyone ever buy that? Why? Headset, so make sure you keep your pair of AirPods Pro 2 around. H2 chip is required, though. God, can we just... We're going to war with Meta because we thought that preventing them from tracking your data was not going to be enough to tank them, so now, can we just get Type-C on AirPods Max? We're going after the MetaQuest Pro with Apple View, running XR OS or 10R OS, or Mixed Reality OS. I hate you. Seriously. Let's begin! Last October basically opened the door to the potential that Apple doesn't have to have an event for all major announcements anymore. They might go back to the press release if there's nothing really ready or that exciting by March, but it should be mentioned that for the past few years, yes, there have been spring events, but just because we may get an announcement in March doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna be a crazy mixed reality headset, because honestly, the reports around this thing are crazier than Alex Jones, and I don't think we should hold much weight to these timelines because they're constantly changing, and especially the most recent drop of reports from The Information have made very little sense, and despite the insanity of my skit today, all of that is basically based on reports that we've gotten about the mixed reality headset, which I think it's much more likely to be an internal development tool. But here's a few things that you could get at an Apple theoretical spring event in 2023 that may not necessarily knock your socks off, and frankly they could fill like a 1 hour to 1.5 hour event with these types of updates, which are not that exciting. For one, last couple years now, there's been something going on with the iPhone lineup every spring. In 2020, they introduced the SE2. In 2021, they had a pretty big spring event, but they introduced new iPhone colors. In 2022, they once again introduced new colors. So in 2023, it's not that crazy to assume Apple might introduce an actual iPhone 14 color that doesn't cause your eyes to bleed. So my hope is that we could get either like an iPhone XR blue or an iPhone XR yellow available for the regular 14 and 14 Plus. Something tells me that with all of the supply chain issues they've had with the 14 Pro series, they probably won't introduce a new 14 Pro color because Tim Cook finally figured out the supply chain on that one and is like, how the heck are we supposed to get these products to people on time? They finally killed off the wait time, and introducing a new color will just probably complicate things further. But if this were a wish list, I would love a product red 14 Pro. That would be awesome. Convince everybody to drop $1,000 to $1,200 on their iPhone in 2023, only for it to switch to Type-C in just a couple of months. But something else that Apple even said they were going to do in 2022 that they ended up not doing was introduce Apple Music Classics. So there was a lot of talk after Apple acquired a classical music streaming service saying that they would work it into Apple Music down the road. We thought that was going to happen at some point in 2022, and it didn't. So in general, an Apple Music tier that is just for classical music, that could become a thing. And of course, because it's not that exciting or interesting, it would probably be dropped at a spring event. In case you weren't aware, Apple spring events are usually where they have all of their smallest upgrades. They tend to save the big stuff for Dub and the iPhone event in September, but Apple services updates in general would tend to be around a spring event. In case you forgot, the worst Apple event of all time, the March 2019 event, there was no hardware, there was just Big Bird and Oprah, and that is by far, across the tech community, the Apple event that gets rewatched the least number of times. Although I'll never forget the moment where they accidentally made Apple News Plus sound even more underwhelming than it really was.
Apple News Plus will bring you over 3,000 magazines. I'm sorry, 300 magazines.
Other refreshes that we really expected Apple to do in 2022 could also be reserved for this spring event. For one, the Mac Mini, it's criminal that they have still not updated that thing with the M2 chip. Still kind of mind-boggling to me that they figured out how to develop a faster version of the M1, and they were like, let's put this in an 11-inch iPad Pro with an LCD display before we put that in any desktop Mac. 24-inch iMac as well, still rocking the M1 chip. They're like, yeah, you don't need the M2, but this iPad without a calculator app, yeah, you need M2 performance on this thing, because that's the only way you can get Apple Pencil Hover to work, right? Apple? Yeah, that's your logic? Okay. So yeah, Mac Mini refresh with the M2 chip, or perhaps even an M2 Pro chip could be ready for the Mac Mini by then. But even though Mark Gurman has been pushing that a Pro chip is coming to the Mac Mini, I feel like that might eat a little bit too much into sales of the Mac Studio. So if it does find its way into the Mac Mini, I'm gonna guess it's only the binned option. And if you want a non-binned M2 Pro, you're gonna have to wait for the 14-inch or 16-inch MacBook Pro refreshes, which also could be at this event, because we've been hearing all 2022 that Apple had an M2 variant of the 14-inch and 16-inch MacBook Pros ready, and that they wanted to ship them in the fourth quarter, but of course that didn't end up happening. The reason I think this would be perfect for a spring event is because other than the chip upgrades, there's basically been no rumors about any other changes, like same ports, same design, same display. You know, I'm not trying to complain, obviously, the 14-inch and 16-inch MacBook Pros, they were very major upgrades in every way, so it's probably wrong to assume that they would change anything other than the chips, but still, that doesn't change the fact that it would be a pretty minor upgrade to just be like, and it's faster now, and it's got a little bit better battery life. Maybe they throw in a slightly faster Wi-Fi chip or something, but it would not be a big design unveil, obviously. So that basically covers all of the most boring upgrades that I think Apple could hypothetically save for a spring event to just act like, yeah, we've got some stuff to announce, but not really that much. Some more wildcard things that are rumored to come out later in the year, but are probably a bit too soon to launch in spring is, for example, the 15-inch MacBook Air, which is rumored to still be on track for a launch later this year, although I think they'll probably save that for Dub Dub. You know, they launched the M2 MacBook Air at Dub Dub last year, so feels kind of logical to let a year go by, and now there's a bigger size option that's probably $200 more than what you're willing to pay. The other one that we really thought we were going to get last year was the Apple Silicon Mac Pro, which the news just continues to get more and more sad surrounding this one, because Gurman is claiming now that the upgraded Apple Silicon Mac Pro is going to look identical to the current Mac Pro and no longer feature user upgradable RAM. So you'll have some slots for graphics cards maybe, or expandable storage and more networking cards, but just take out the super expensive Intel chip, slap in an M2 Ultra, and boom, there's your Mac Pro. But the last two Mac Pros, which don't drop very regularly, were both announced at Dub Dub. So if Apple keeps up with that tradition, I would assume that means no new Mac Pro until June. But yeah, personally, I'm still very skeptical of all of the mixed reality headset reports, because they've been wrong so many times year after year. And I'm also just, the more I'm hearing about it now from other sources, hoping that it's not real, because now we're reading articles that claim Apple is taking software engineers away from iOS 17 development, taking people away from working on iPadOS 17 just so that they can get XR working properly. And this headset is still rumored to cost like $3,000 and only be useful for a handful of development purposes. So I'm just like, do you guys want iOS 17 or iPadOS 17 to be put on the back burner just so that a $3,000 headset can cater to a very niche group of developers? I don't think so. I definitely don't have any interest in buying a $3,000 headset, so I'm skeptical of the reports, but even if they end up being true, I think I'll be very disappointed if this is what Apple thinks is worth their time and attention, given how few people are probably going to buy it and actually use it. But what other hopes do you guys have for Apple's spring event? Like, do you want the iMac Pro to be making its comeback? Are you hoping for an exclusive first look at the Pro Display refresh? All that good stuff. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And thank you to everyone on Tailosive Tech Pro supporting this channel directly. Seriously, helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. So this is your Apple Sheep here. I'll see you all in the next one.